Hola, and welcome once again to the Schaefer Small Engine Shop and two-car garage. Today we're going to take a look at the world's most complicated power head, a Troy Bilt 4-stroke TB685EC. TB, I'm sure, stands for Troy Bilt, and the EC, I think, stands for electric catastrophe, because this is one of these units. It's got a little electric start, which I like, but the design of this thing is a catastrophe. If this isn't the most complicated power head in the world, it is a definite contender. And I'll show you what all I've had to do with it. And if I had a real small engine shop and somebody walked in with one of these things, I would tell them thanks, but no thanks. Now, if you got a shop and your shop labor rate is $70, $75, $80 an hour, who knows how much, there's no telling how many hours I have spent fooling with this thing. Basically, all day yesterday, but it's back together now. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to bring you in close and show you how this thing is so complicated. It's unbelievable. Hang on. I hope you can see a little better. But this comes off, and this mess of spaghetti underneath here is what it takes to hook up world's most complicated carburetor. I'm going to close this up. And then we got a little issue with the electric start here. I'll cover that in just a second. Here on the bench, let me turn you around just a little better. This is world's most complicated carburetor setup. I have worked on 1,000 little carburetors like this. They've got one outlet in and one outlet out. One sucks fuel through the carburetor and discharges out over here. And you've got these little, if it's got it may have a primer bulb on the bottom of it. This one has a remote primer, as does this one. So these little remote primers have got two hoses, two nipples on them. Short nipple is the suction nipple. The long nipple discharges and goes right back into the tank. So you push the primer, and this hose here has a fuel filter on it. It goes inside the tank with a fuel filter, sucks gas through the line, through the carburetor, purges the air, comes back into the bulb, and you pump the bulb and it sucks in, and then it blows it back out through the discharge, which goes directly into the tank. Not too complicated. a little bit more complicated when it has a remote primer bulb like this one I have in my hand here. But I've worked on 1,000 of them. I've got 1,000 of these little primer bulbs that are just about every carb kit comes with one, so I've got about 100 or 1,000 of them. So here's what MTD presented us with. MTD, in their wisdom, and I've got some other MTD stuff, I like it just fine, including the Cub Cadet riding mower. MTD has got a carburetor, and instead of having one inlet and one outlet, oh hello, this has got 1, 2, 3. Never seen that before. And the little primer bulb up here, instead of having 2 nipples, a short one and a long one, well, this has got 2 longs and a short. So the customer brings it here, all the hoses are rotten, and you get to fooling with it and they all break off, and you're not sure exactly what goes where, and you try to find this on the internet and you can't find it. I eventually found a guy that was reworking one of these, but he talks so dadgum fast. You know, you'd have to go back and play it back, rewind, play it back, rewind, trying to figure out what in the world goes where. So I spent 4 or 5 hours yesterday at my shop rate of 0.00, and I finally figured this thing out. The carburetor actually sits like this. Actually sits like this. Got a straight outlet here on the bottom, a straight nipple here on the bottom. This goes into this line, that goes into the gas tank. It's got a fuel filter on it. This line is also a suction line, and it goes into one of the side nipples on this 3-prong primer bulb. This is a discharge nipple, and it goes into this outlet on the top of the carburetor. Never seen that before. And this is the discharge line, and it goes directly back into the tank. So this goes into the tank, this goes into the tank, and these two here, the 2 black ones, they just connect to various nipples on this world's most complicated carburetor. But I finally figured it out. I had bought a new carb and it's installed, but what a mess. Oh, anyway, I got it all back together after 4 or 5 hours. Now let me bring you over here a little bit better, and we'll take a look at what all I've done here. That ought to do. The top piece comes off, and you can see all the spaghetti underneath it that I've had to replace when I put the new carb on. But it's all connected. One of the reasons that this thing came over here was this. You'll notice it's not connected to anything. So I take the starter housing off, and, well, I figured the starter was broken. No, starter's good. Still got 2 ears on it, so the problem is not the starter. The problem is this fan here. Hope we can see that, yeah. This fan has got 2 shafts, I guess you'd call them, that are press fit into the fan. And the little press fit pins have got springs on them. Well, nowhere inside this housing is any sign of a pawl that would catch the 2 ears on the recall there. Gone, disappeared, non-existent. So I find on the internet, kind of by accident, a pawl kit for this thing. And I order the pawl kit, and it comes in, but and it says it's for TB685E. But I can tell you, it's not for this 685E. These pawls are supposed to go into some hole that's in this fan, but they don't fit in anything. They would fit in to a hole, except this hole's got this press fit pin in it. So these pawls, this pawl kit is worthless. And to fix this thing, where it'll start, you've got to buy, can't get a real good look at it, but this entire housing here, this oil pan, and it comes with a set of what appears to be metal pawls that fit on these 2 pins here with the springs. So instead of getting a $10 pawl kit, you get to buy a $60 or $70 oil pan. This is going back to the customer, and if he wants to spend another $60 in addition to what I've already had to do here, he's going to end up with $110 extra in a, I don't know, $200 power head. I don't know what this thing costs, but he'll have to make that decision. But what all I've done here is about all I can do with it, and it will start and it will run. Let me put it back together, and you have to start it with one of these electric drill starters, and I'll put it back together and crank her up for you. Before I button this thing up, I've got to put some sealer on this ignition line. If you can see this little white spot here, it is worn almost through to the wire on the inside. Well, I'm going to seal it up with some ultra black before I button this thing up. I forgot to mention another act of genius. Here on the side, you cannot pull this starter shroud without removing this little bitty screw, and it takes, I can't tell whether that's a hex or a square, but it is tiny. And fortunately, I have one of these sets that's got all these various safety bits and drills, and it had a little bit that fits this thing, and that's that. So, let me back you up a little bit and we'll see if this thing will fire up like it's supposed to. Two ounces of HD30 is what's in this thing. Date of manufacture 04/2017. So it's not old, 7 years. That's fairly old. This is my little nifty carburetor stand I made a long time ago. Now they're people, Greasy Shop Rag amongst others, are selling these on the internet, made out of metal, much nicer than mine. So, looks like we're well primed, and let's see if she can fire up. This thing has no choke. One of the little hoses that connects to the top of the carburetor, that's supposed to dump a little extra fuel into the Venturi, basically try to function like a choke. Well, I'd rather have a choke. Takes it a while to warm up because it doesn't have a choke. Watch this. This thing is very sensitive to how much air it intakes. Got this foam filter. I put some oil on it. It would hardly run till I squeezed most of the oil out. And here it is, there's no filter. Backfired out the carburetor. Anyway, not the smoothest running unit. Of course, it doesn't have any jets to try to correct the jetting on it, but hey, it runs. I think it'll get the job done for him. And thanks for watching. If you like these videos, hit the subscribe button and you'll get everything that I do. So, thanks for watching. Come back to see me.